Hi guys, so today we're going to be making lemon meringue pie, so let's get started. This is an overview of some of the ingredients that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to actually add a little bit of fresh ginger into the pie just to give it a little bit of a kick. But let's get started. And we're going to start off with our graham cracker crust. You can use pie crust. A lot of people use pie crust when they make lemon meringue pie, but I really like a graham cracker crust. So I just started off by putting all the cookies inside of a bag, and then I'm using a rolling pin just to crush them up until they're really fine. And once they're really fine, I'm going to add those crumbs into a bowl. I'm going to add brown sugar and white sugar to my crust. The reason why I like to use both is because the brown sugar, it helps to add depth of flavor, but it also helps the crust stay pliable because of the molasses that's in brown sugar. It helps it not to become too stiff. This is a great crust if you want to make like a no-bake pie too. So to that graham cracker and sugars mixture, I'm going to add my melted butter, and then I'm going to use a fork to work that in until it all comes together. So when I was mixing this, I was noticing that it was still a little dry. And as you can see here, I'm pressing it, but it's not coming together. So I know I needed to add a little bit more butter. So I melted 2 more tablespoons of butter off camera, and I'm going to add that in 1 tablespoon at a time. And I'm just going to work that into the crumbs until I see it come together. I basically want it to come together like wet sand. I don't want it to fall apart when I'm trying to slice the pie later. So I really needed to I need it to be able to, when I press it together, it stays put. So you might have to add in a tablespoon or 2 more melted butter depending on your graham crackers. And you can just test it by pressing it together and seeing if it keeps its shape. A 9-inch glass pie pan, and I'm just putting those evenly in the pan, and that's just going to help me out later when I'm starting to form the crust. And I'm going to be using 1/4 of a cup measuring cup to kind of even out the crust and make it a little bit more easy to form into that pie crust. So I'm just starting off by patting and pressing down the bottom layer of the crust just so I can get that started, and I'm slowly pushing up some of those cookie crumbs around the edges as I'm pressing. So I'm pressing and I'm patting, and I'm kind of pushing them out a little so I can form that crust. And this is why it's really important to have the cookie crumbs nice and fine, because you don't want big chunks of cookies when you're trying to make the crust come together. It's going to get in the way and get in the way of you creating that nice compact crust. So now that I have our base nice and tight, I'm going to go around the edges, and I'm going to use my measuring cup and press it together just to make sure it's nice and compact. And now that we have our pie crust created, we're going to stick that in a 350-degree oven for about 8 minutes. So let's get started on our lemon filling. So we're going to be starting off by grating some lemon zest, and that's just the outer layer. So you can see the flesh right there of the lemon, and then that white strip, that's called the pith. That's very bitter. So you just want that lemon zest, that outer layer, that outer yellow layer of the lemon. If you go into the pit, it will get bitter. You can use the fine side of a box grater to get the zest, or you could use a cheese grater, or you can use, like I'm going to use, a microplane, and this is a great tool to get the zest. And it was actually created by a carpenter who made it for his wife so that she could use it as a kitchen tool, but it was originally used for wood. And I'm going to do the zest right on top of the sugar so I can get all of the oils of the lemon. And this is the sugar we're going to use in the filling. And I'm also going to use about a 1-inch piece of fresh ginger that I'm going to grate right into the lemon zest and the sugar mixture. But you don't have to, it's completely optional. And once I have that already, I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to get the juice rolling or get the juice ready for the pie. So I'm going to use about 4 lemons. So I've just rolled them so that it will be easier to extract the juice later on. And then I'm going to cut them up, and you can use 2 things to get the juice, or more than 2 things. But you can use a fork, and you would just press it inside the lemon till you get to the skin, and then you just wiggle it around, pressing it and wiggling it until you get all the juice. But a little bit of an easier tool, you can actually use a handheld juicer, which is what I have here. And you just want to stick it in the lemon and squeeze out all the juice. Each lemon should give you about anywhere from a tablespoon to 3 tablespoons of juice, depending on how juicy the lemon is. And we're going to need about a half a cup, so I'm going to use probably at least 3 lemons, 3 or 4 lemons. So after I've gotten the juice, I'm just going to separate it from the seeds and the pulp and set that aside. So we'll also be using some fresh eggs, but we're going to use the yolks and the egg whites separately. So I'm going to separate the yolks from the egg whites. And I'm going to put my egg whites inside of my mixing bowl for later. So let's get started on our lemon filling. And this is a really good filling, so you'll like it, I think. So let's add in our water and all of our egg yolks to a saucepan on medium-high heat, and we're also going to add in our fresh lemon juice, as well as our sugar, our fresh ginger, and our lemon zest mixture, all in the pan. And lastly, I'm going to add in our cornstarch. That with the eggs is going to help thicken our pudding. So this is a pudding or a lemon curd, and it's really flavorful. It's going to have a nice bright lemon flavor. But the trick of it, or kind of the tricky part of it, you really have to keep stirring and stirring, because if you don't, the egg yolks will turn into scrambled eggs, and you don't want that. So put it on medium-high heat and keep stirring. You can use a whisk or a spoon. I find a whisk a little bit easier because you can I can fill the bottom of the pan just a little bit more. So just keep stirring, and you can actually see that the pudding is starting to get thick already. You see how it's hitting the sides of the pan and it's taking longer to climb down to the bottom? That shows me that my pudding is getting thicker, and I can actually feel it too under my hand getting thick. So it was about the consistency of, let's say, water, but now it's getting nice and thick. So keep stirring, keep stirring. And once it's gotten to a nice thick consistency like this, you want to let it boil or let it cook on the heat for about a minute while you're continuing to stir. And then you're going to take it off the heat, and then you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of butter. And this is just going to give the pudding a nice mouthfeel. Be nice and silky and smooth in your mouth when you eat it. So that's why we're going to add the butter, and we're going to add it off heat. Now we can pour the filling right into our pie crust that we've taken out of the oven and let cool. And we'll just pour that in, and we'll start on our meringue topping. So let's do it. So you can do this by hand or on a stand mixer like I'm doing. And I'm just taking my egg whites, and I'm going to beat them until they're a little bit frothy, just to kind of break them up. And then I'm going to add lemon juice and sugar. And what the lemon juice and the sugar will do, it will help the egg whites to be nice and firm and nice and shiny. So you just want to beat it up until it creates stiff peaks. And this is what the stiff peaks look like. It's able to stand up straight on its own by itself. And then you can add that to the pie. You don't have to put it in a piping bag like I'm doing. You can put it directly, like take all the egg whites and put it on top and then kind of smooth it out. But I just wanted to do a little bit of a decoration. And now that we have that already, we can put it in the oven at 350 for 20 minutes. And 20 minutes later, you have a beautiful lemon meringue pie for you and your family to enjoy. And let it sit on the counter for at least 3 hours, 2 or 3 hours, so it can set up before you cut a slice. And I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.